The unlikely fleet. The Galactic Council's emergency beacon pulsed like a heartbeat of distress, a deep crimson light reflecting off the crystalline walls of the Grand Chamber. First Councillor Vrextal, a towering figure of the Sulthran species, stood rigid, his bioluminescent exoskeleton shifting from a cautious green to a worried amber. The silence in the room was suffocating as every council member watched the central holographic display. A Category 1 distress signal had just been received from the Xiphos colony, an industrial settlement on the volatile moon of Caravex. Xiphos was home to over 75,000 colonists, representing 12 different species. Its mineral-rich caverns made it a critical supply hub for the galactic core, producing elements essential for starship construction. But something had gone terribly wrong. The report displayed cascading system failures. Atmospheric processors offline, subterranean pressure building uncontrollably, and emergency containment fields weakening by the minute. A high-pitched chime cut through the tension as senior analyst Quenor, a member of the amphibious Orvis species, expanded the hologram to show real-time data streams. The figures were grim. Projected total system collapse in 70 standard hours, Quenor announced, his throat sacs vibrating with stress. The colony's infrastructure is failing at a rate our models can't even predict. Atmo pressures are reaching lethal thresholds. First Councillor Vrextal's crystalline fingers trembled. The Xiphos colony is built on a tectonic fault line. If their stabilizers fail, the entire moon will become uninhabitable. The chamber was filled with a cacophony of harmonic pulses as council members expressed alarm. What about the nearest response fleet? Vrextal demanded. A pause. Then a hesitant response. The 7th Emergency Squadron is 3 weeks away, tied up in the Lithus Nebula disaster. The 3rd Fleet, still 17 days out. We have no military vessels or automated rescue drones within range. A heavy silence fell over the room. There was no time to evacuate, no time for protocol. The Xiphos colony was doomed unless a miracle arrived. Then another alert flashed across the screen. New ship signatures detected, approaching from an unexpected vector. Hundreds of them. Unknown fleet detected on long-range sensors, Quenor reported. They don't match any military or corporate registry, but they're moving fast. The council members turned toward the central hologram, their appendages and tendrils twitching with uncertainty. The ships didn't resemble any organized fleet. They weren't sleek warships or sophisticated emergency vessels. Instead, they were an assortment of modified cargo haulers, converted passenger liners, repurposed industrial freighters, and small scout craft buzzing in formation like worker drones around a queen. Who are they? Vrextal's voice was tight with skepticism. Quenor interfaced with the scanner, then suddenly stiffened. They're broadcasting an identification signal. The chamber's holo-display adjusted, translating the incoming transmission. A simple, unassuming message flickered onto the massive screen in Galactic Common. Earth Search and Rescue Fleet responding to distress call, requesting approach vectors and situation update. For a moment, no one spoke. The name Earth carried little weight in the Galactic Council. The humans were a recently uplifted species, only gaining interstellar travel within the last 50 years. They were considered young, reckless, and disturbingly unpredictable. Their homeworld, a planet called Terra, was a place of extremes. Massive storms, shifting tectonic plates, volatile oceans, and an atmosphere that had nearly destroyed them multiple times throughout their history. And yet here they were. The chamber buzzed with debate. They're civilians, one of the council members protested. That fleet is just a collection of repurposed industrial vessels. We can't entrust an operation of this magnitude to them. The Xiphos colony doesn't have time for a debate, Vrextal countered. His gaze lingered on the approaching fleet, his mind torn between skepticism and a sliver of desperate hope. A new transmission came through, and the central display shifted, revealing the human commander. A woman, mid-40s by human standards, stood on the bridge of the largest vessel. She wore a dark blue uniform with a simple Earth search and rescue insignia on her chest. Behind her, a viewport revealed the vast, bustling fleet maneuvering like a hive of seasoned professionals. The unanswered call. The distress beacon pulsed through the void of space, its signal a desperate cry for help lost in the vast, indifferent expanse. The message had been repeating for hours, automated warnings growing more urgent with each cycle. Deep within the Galactic Council's emergency monitoring station, First Coordinator Xelvora watched the holographic display with growing unease. The beacon originated from Cassara 4, a mining colony located in the fringe territories, an unforgiving world rich in volatile minerals, but plagued by seismic instability. It had been operational for nearly 4 decades, supplying the galactic trade network with essential materials used in constructing interstellar drives and high-density alloys. Yet now, the data stream showed a rapid environmental collapse. The colony's atmospheric stabilizers had failed, and a catastrophic chain reaction was underway. Toxic gas concentrations were rising, underground structures were caving in, and in less than 72 standard hours, the colony would be uninhabitable. 50,000 colonists from 12 different species were trapped. Xelvora turned his crystalline appendages toward his team, his bioluminescent form shifting into an alarmed hue. Status of the nearest rescue fleet. His junior analyst, Tivrik, hesitated, his tendrils twitching. The 7th Emergency Response Division is engaged in the Hadar crisis. They're locked down for another 3 weeks. The 3rd Fleet could be diverted, but their nearest jump point is 18 days away. Even at maximum burn, they won't make it in time. Xelvora's core resonance darkened in frustration. He was a high-ranking administrator of the Galactic Council, overseeing vast rescue operations across multiple sectors. But even with their advanced technologies, even with fleets built for rapid response, sometimes they were simply too far away. A cold realization settled over him. Cassara 4 was doomed. He reached out to deactivate the distress beacon from the main display. No help would arrive in time. The Council would issue formal condolences and classify the event as an unavoidable disaster, another loss in the fragile tapestry of interstellar civilization. Then the system pinged again. New readings appeared on the holo interface. An approaching fleet detected on the long-range sensors. Xelvora frowned. That's impossible. There were no registered fleets in that sector. Tivrik scanned the incoming ships, his tendrils freezing in disbelief. Sir, they're not Council vessels. Xelvora's form pulsed with unease. Then who are they? The holographic display zoomed in, capturing the unusual signatures of the approaching fleet. There were hundreds of ships, moving in tight formations, but they were nothing like the sleek, uniform rescue vessels of the Galactic Council. These ships were disorganized, a hodgepodge of wildly different designs. Some looked like old cargo haulers, their hulls reinforced with mismatched plating. Others resembled civilian liners, retrofitted with external pods and modular equipment. There were even smaller frigates darting between the larger vessels in an erratic, seemingly chaotic pattern. Tivrik's voice wavered. They're broadcasting an identification signal. The message was simple. Earth Search and Rescue Fleet responding to distress call. Requesting approach vectors. Silence filled the monitoring station. Earth, a primitive species, only recently welcomed into the galactic community. Barely a century ago, they had been trapped within their own solar system, a world still tangled in internal wars and resource struggles. The Galactic Council had considered them a minor player, too young, too inexperienced to hold any real power. And yet, here they were. Xelvora's form flickered uncertainly. This is a Category 1 planetary emergency. The conditions on Cassara 4 are extreme. Their ships won't survive the approach. Tivrik hesitated, his tendrils shifting between uncertainty and curiosity. Their fleet isn't moving like a random collection of ships. Their formations are deliberate, refined. Xelvora analyzed the patterns of their approach. They weren't military, that much was clear. No warships, no heavy armaments. And yet, the efficiency of their movements spoke of precise coordination, a level of training not even some Galactic Council fleets possessed. Zelvora turned toward his command staff. "Get me a secure channel with their fleet leader." Moments later, the central holographic display shifted. A human woman appeared, standing on the bridge of the largest vessel, a massive, battle-worn ship named the Pacific Resolve. She was clad in a practical, deep blue uniform, her insignia minimalist but well-worn. Her dark eyes carried an intensity that Zelvora had never seen before. "This is Captain Alina Voss, commanding officer of the Earth Search and Rescue Fleet," she said, her voice steady. "We have received your distress call. We are here to help." Zelvora hesitated. "Captain Voss, you do understand the severity of the situation. Cassera 4's atmosphere is highly unstable. The gases will corrode ship hulls within minutes. The gravity fluctuations alone will." "We've handled worse," Voss interrupted. "We've extracted civilians from burning orbital stations. We've navigated rescue operations through collapsing gas giants. My fleet has survived planetary hurricanes and deep-sea pressure zones that would crush standard council ships." Zelvora glanced at the strange, rugged fleet behind her. Their vessels looked crude, patched together, yet there was something fearsome about them. These weren't polished, high-tech rescue ships built for ideal conditions. These were vessels built for the impossible. "You built a rescue fleet out of civilian ships?" he asked incredulously. Voss's lips twitched into a wry smile. "No, Coordinator. We built a rescue fleet out of survivors." A moment of silence passed before she spoke again, her voice unyielding. "Now, either you send us the approach vectors, or you explain to the thousands of colonists on Cassera 4 why your bureaucracy decided to let them die." Zelvora's crystalline matrix shimmered with uncertainty. His instincts told him that entrusting this mission to an untested species was beyond reckless. And yet, as he studied the calm certainty in Captain Voss's expression, he felt something else, a glimmer of hope. He turned to his officers. "Transmit the approach vectors." Tivrik hesitated. "Sir, are we sure about this?" Zelvora's bioluminescent form brightened with finality. "We're about to find out." As the human fleet accelerated toward certain death, the Galactic Council watched in silence. And in that moment, they had no idea they were about to witness history. Into the storm. The Pacific Resolve led the Earth Rescue Fleet into the Cassera 4 disaster zone, its reinforced hull bracing against the violent forces that had already begun tearing the colony apart. From orbit, the mining settlement was a scared industrial patch on the planet's crimson surface, barely visible through the swirling clouds of toxic gas. What had once been an advanced outpost of interstellar engineering was now on the brink of destruction. Captain Alina Voss stood on the bridge of her flagship, her hands clasped behind her back, as she assessed the real-time data streaming in from the fleet's instruments. Cassera 4's atmospheric stabilizers were failing faster than projected, and the increasing seismic activity suggested that the planet itself was turning against them. "Time to total collapse?" she asked. Lieutenant Jordan Hayes, her tactical officer, adjusted his holo display. "Best estimate. 48 hours before the atmosphere is completely unbreathable. Less than that before the structural supports start failing." Alina exhaled slowly. They didn't have much time. The bridge crew worked with calm efficiency, each officer a veteran of impossible missions. Unlike the rigid military precision of the Galactic Council's fleets, Earth's rescue operations thrived on adaptive expertise. Each crew member trained in multiple disciplines, their roles shifting as the situation demanded. A proximity alert sounded as the fleet pierced the outer cloud layers. Immediately, the crimson haze of the planet's poisoned atmosphere surrounded them, the dense mixture of chemicals corroding any exposed surfaces. "Shield integrity at 89% and dropping," Chief Engineer Rafael Cortez reported. "Holding for now, but the longer we stay, the harder it's going to get." "Keep rotating hull exposure," Alina ordered. Distribute the damage evenly. Unlike traditional starships, Earth's fleet didn't rely on static shielding. Instead, they had pioneered a system of rotating hull plating, inspired by Earth's old deep-sea submersibles. Their ablative armor didn't resist environmental damage. It absorbed it, spreading the wear evenly across multiple layers. It was a crude, human solution, but it worked. Council is hailing us. Communications Officer Ava Sinclair announced, her earpiece flashing. They want an update on our entry status. Alina smirked. Now, they want an update. She gestured for the comms link. The holographic display flickered, and First Coordinator Xilvora reappeared, his crystalline form flickering with uncertainty. Captain Voss, your fleet has entered the lower atmosphere. His voice carried barely concealed disbelief. No other fleet has ever attempted such a maneuver. Your survival chances are rapidly decreasing. Alina crossed her arms. Then I guess it's a good thing we're not other fleets. Xelvora hesitated. Your technology is unconventional. The Council's simulations predict catastrophic failure at these conditions. Simulations don't save lives. We do. Alina's eyes flickered to the live feed of Cassera 4, where the colony's evacuation shelters were already buckling under increasing pressure. And right now, those colonists need rescuing. Either help us coordinate or stay out of our way. The alien's bioluminescent glow dimmed. Understood. The transmission cut. Approaching the colony perimeter. Jordan called out. Scans show underground tunnels collapsing. If we don't move fast, we'll lose access to key entry points. Alina turned to the fleet-wide comms. All ships prepare for rapid deployment. We do this in 3 phases: containment, stabilization, and evacuation. The Stormbreaker fleet will create a temporary shield to slow the atmosphere's deterioration. The Stellar Horizon will establish an emergency trade center. The Pacific Resolve and primary rescue teams will go groundside. Understood, came the replies. Earth's fleet split into coordinated formations, the larger vessels taking up defensive positions while the smaller, more maneuverable ships began their descent into Cassera 4's crumbling infrastructure. Deploying surface teams now, Ava confirmed. Across the fleet, rescue shuttles launched from their bays, their reinforced hulls diving into the chaotic atmosphere below. The descent begins. As the first teams landed, the true extent of the devastation became clear. The ground trembled beneath them, cracks forming across the colony's metallic foundations. The air shimmered with toxic fumes, burning the edges of their protective suits. Alina led the first wave of responders, her boots striking the colony's main platform with familiar determination. Behind her, teams of engineers, medical personnel, and search and rescue specialists fanned out, securing key structures while deploying stabilization barriers. A group of alien colonists emerged from one of the shelters, their forms shaking with fear and exhaustion. They hesitated upon seeing the human responders, their expressions laced with uncertainty. Stay calm, Alina called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. We're here to help. An older alien, his body wrapped in protective environmental fabric, stepped forward. You're not Galactic Council. Who are you? Alina extended her hand. The ones who showed up. Before he could respond, a violent tremor shook the colony. The ground beneath them split open, revealing the yawning chasm leading into the colony's subterranean tunnels. Multiple collapses detected. Jordan's voice crackled through the comms. We're losing sections of the lower levels. Alina scanned the debris-strewn landscape. Somewhere below, hundreds of colonists were trapped in those tunnels, cut off from the surface. She toggled her comms. Rodriguez Nakamura, prepare for deep entry rescue ops. We're going underground. Rodriguez, one of her best environmental specialists, grimaced. Captain, the air's unstable down there. Even our suits might not hold. Then we better move fast, Alina replied, because no one gets left behind. As the rescue teams rushed toward the gaping abyss, the Galactic Council watched from orbit, stunned into silence. This was not a standard operation. This was not how things were done. And yet, against all probability, the Earth fleet was doing the impossible. As the humans descended into the darkness, their determination unshaken, First Coordinator Xel Vora found himself facing a new, undeniable truth. The galaxy had always measured power in terms of weapons, technology, and war. But perhaps, the most fearsome fleet in the universe wasn't the one that conquered. It was the one that refused to let anyone die. Into the abyss. The gaping chasm in the colony's foundation was an open wound carved by the planet's relentless seismic upheaval. Toxic gases spiraled from the depths, a noxious mix that would have been instantly lethal to any species unprepared for such extremes. But the Earth rescue team had spent centuries surviving the most hostile environments known to their world, from the frozen depths of Antarctica to the blackest trenches of the Pacific Ocean. For Captain Alina Voss, this wasn't just another rescue mission. It was a declaration, a challenge to the galaxy itself. Earth didn't abandon its own. Not in the void of space, not in the depths of an alien world. Not ever. She toggled her comms. Rodriguez Nakamura. Status. Rodriguez, already suiting up with her deep entry rescue team, responded instantly. Seismic activity is increasing, but we're reading structural pockets underground. Some of those tunnels might still be intact. Nakamura's voice followed. We're detecting a large chamber roughly 3 kilometers below the surface, possibly a central hub. If survivors are still down there, that's where they'll be. Alina nodded sharply. Then that's where we're going. The Council observers listening from orbit must have thought they misheard. The Galactic Council, in situations like these, would have sealed the tunnels and declared the survivors lost. No fleet, no species, had ever attempted a deep entry rescue in conditions like this. Until now. The descent begins. The rescue teams moved swiftly, strapping into their exorigs, hybrid environmental suits built for both deep sea and space rescues. Their outer layers were designed to handle pressure shifts, their internal systems modified for variable atmosphere control. Each member carried a modular life support pack, an innovation that had saved countless lives during Earth's early space colonization efforts. Rodriguez checked her team's oxygen reserves. Readings are stable. Sealing all suits. Ava Sinclair, monitoring from orbit aboard the Pacific Resolve, relayed additional intel. Atmospheric readings are unpredictable. We can't guarantee clean zones once you're in. Be ready for rapid environmental shifts. Alina smirked. We've handled worse. With one last glance toward the colony's crumbling infrastructure, she turned and leaped into the abyss. Her team followed, plunging into the darkness. Beneath the surface, the descent was rough. The tunnel walls had fractured from the seismic events, creating an unpredictable labyrinth of collapsed corridors and unstable rock formations. The air was thick with sulfuric haze, and their external temperature gauges fluctuated wildly. Rodriguez activated her nav system, scanning for viable entry points. We've got a path. Seismic instability ahead, but we can make it. Alina's boots hit solid ground as she adjusted her visor, her HUD flickering with data. Their destination was below them, but the way forward was blocked by a massive rockslide. She turned to Nakamura. Can we clear this? The engineer ran a quick assessment. If we use standard excavation tools, we risk another collapse. But he trailed off, considering an alternative. We could use controlled sonic charges, like we do in deep-sea rescues, to create artificial breakpoints. Alina considered it. The Council would never approve such a reckless move. They preferred to work within the boundaries of pre-existing conditions. But humans didn't wait for conditions to be perfect. They adapted. She nodded. Do it. Nakamura and his crew set the charges, their movements calm and methodical. In less than 3 minutes, a controlled detonation echoed through the tunnels, sending a ripple of force through the rock. The collapse gave way, revealing a passage leading deeper into the underground network. Alina's comm crackled. Pacific resolve to Captain Voss, reading a new heat signature below you. She frowned. Define new. Ava's voice was tense. It's not part of the original colony infrastructure. You're headed toward something else. Elena exchanged a look with Rodriguez. The colony had been built on a supposedly stable plateau. There should have been nothing beneath it but rock. Yet, the readings told a different story. Only one way to find out, she muttered. Let's move. The forgotten depths. The deeper they went, the more alien the tunnels became. The structures no longer resembled mining operations. Instead, they carried the unmistakable patterns of artificial construction. Walls reinforced with unknown materials, markings that didn't match any known galactic language. Rodriguez whistled. Captain, this wasn't built by the colonists. Elena felt a chill. Then who built it? Before anyone could answer, a metallic scraping echoed through the tunnels. Something was moving in the darkness. Contacts. Nakamura shouted, raising his weapon. The rescue team froze, scanning their surroundings. Their visor displays flickered, trying to make sense of the shadows shifting just beyond their light sources. Then, out of the gloom, they emerge. Tall, angular, silent. Creatures encased in segmented armor, their elongated limbs moving with an unnatural precision. Their biomechanical exoskeletons pulsed with a faint, eerie glow. And they were watching. Elena's breath slowed. They weren't animals. They were something else. Rodriguez whispered, Captain, we're not alone down here. Elena held her ground, her muscles tense. She toggled her comms. Pacific resolve. Confirm visual scan. Are we seeing what I think we're seeing? Ava's voice was grim. Confirmed. You're not just walking into a rescue mission, Captain. There was a pause. Then Ava spoke again. You've just walked into a first contact scenario. The moment that changed everything. Silence stretched between the humans and the unknown beings. Then, the tallest of the figures took a slow step forward. Elena didn't move. Neither did her team. This moment, this single moment, would decide everything. The galaxy's perception of humanity had always been tied to war, to survival, to struggle. But here, in the depths of a dying world, humans were standing not as conquerors, but as saviors. Elena took a breath. Then, slowly, deliberately, she lowered her weapon. And for the first time, the creatures spoke. The unknown witnesses. The silence in the tunnel was thick, heavy, electric. The Earth Rescue Team, veterans of disasters, survivors of the impossible, stood face to face with something none of them had expected. The creatures before them were tall, their biomechanical exoskeletons gleaming under the team's helmet lights. They moved with precise, deliberate motions, their glowing veins pulsing like some form of internal power source. They weren't like anything Elena Voss had ever seen. Yet, they hadn't attacked. Elena could feel the weight of the moment, the kind of moment that defined history. First contact. Not on some diplomatic stage, not in the halls of the Galactic Council, but here, deep beneath a collapsing colony, where two species face each other in the darkness of a dying world. She had a choice to make. Every instinct screamed at her to be cautious, to hold formation, to assess the threat. But Earth's greatest strength, what had allowed humanity to endure through wars, disasters, and the cold void of space, had never been its ability to fight. It had always been its ability to understand. Elena took a slow breath and did the one thing no other species in the galaxy would have done. She holstered her weapon. Ava Sinclair's voice crackled in her ear. Captain, are you sure about this? No, Elena muttered, but we didn't come here to start a fight. She took a step forward, raising her empty hands. The lead creature tilted its head. Its exoskeletal armor shifted, as though adjusting its stance. Then, it spoke. The voice wasn't human. It wasn't even organic in the way most species communicated. It was a layered, oscillating hum, like the reverberation of metal under tension. The sound was alien, yet somehow deliberate. Elena's translation software struggled, lines of code scrambling for context. Then, after a few seconds, a rough approximation of galactic common emerged. "You are not of this world." Elena exhaled sharply. "No, we came to help." The creature's glowing bioluminescent veins pulsed, as though considering her words. Rodriguez muttered behind her, "Captain, what the hell are these things?" Elena didn't take her eyes off them. "That's what I'm trying to find out." The alien spoke again. "The ones above do not know we exist." Elena's mind raced. The colonists had been living directly above them for decades, and yet these beings had never been detected. "Why?" she asked. "Why stay hidden?" The creature hesitated. Then, in a movement so fluid and unnatural, it reached out and touched the rock wall beside it. Instantly, the entire tunnel pulsed with a soft, glowing light. Rodriguez cursed. "What the?" The walls around them shifted, reacting to the alien's touch. And then the visions began. The Forgotten War. Images flickered through the tunnel walls. A memory, but not their own. Elena saw Cassera 4, but not as it was now. The world was lush, its atmosphere rich with alien life. The sky, once blue, was now bathed in the same red glow of the toxic gases that choked it today. She saw machines, massive industrial structures, tearing into the planet's core. And then she saw fire. The mining operations had triggered something. The atmospheric collapse hadn't been a natural event. It had been the consequence of destruction. Something ancient had been disturbed. And these creatures, these biomechanical beings, had been here before it happened. Elena's stomach twisted. The colony had been built on the ruins of a civilization no one knew existed. The lead alien retracted its hand from the rock. The vision faded, leaving them in darkness once more. Elena's breath was slow and measured. "This changes everything." Rodriguez swallowed. "Captain, that means..." Elena nodded grimly. Cassera 4 didn't just collapse. It was killed. The truth buried below. The alien leader took a step forward, its glowing eyes locking onto Elena. "Your kind did not cause this destruction, but you seek to repair it." It wasn't a question. It was an observation. Elena clenched her fists. "That's what we do." A long silence stretched between them. Then, in a moment of startling clarity, the alien extended its arm, a gesture that felt eerily human. Elena, after a breath, reached out and grasped it. Ava's voice exploded in her earpiece. "Captain, status." Elena kept her grip firm. "I think we just made first contact." The alien's voice rumbled. "Then let it be known, your kind is different." The creature turned, gesturing for them to follow. Elena didn't hesitate. "Team, move out. We're going deeper." Rodriguez muttered, "Oh yeah, this is definitely a bad idea." But still, they followed, because humanity had never run from the unknown. It ran toward it. Above the surface, the Council watches. From orbit, the Galactic Council had been monitoring every second of the human operation. First Coordinator Exelvora was silent, his crystalline form dimmed in uncertainty. A galactic scientific expedition had surveyed Cassera 4 decades ago. They had found nothing. But now, here were humans, in the span of a few hours, uncovering truths that had been buried for centuries. How had they succeeded where the Council had failed? A fellow counselor, a towering reptilian known as Karashvin, broke the silence. "They are unlike any species we have known." Zelvora hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, they are." Another counselor scoffed. "They are reckless, undisciplined. What if they awaken something dangerous?" Zelvora's glow pulsed. "They already have. But unlike us, they are not afraid." He turned back to the holographic display, watching as the Earth rescue team disappeared into the depths of an ancient secret. Whatever they found down there would change the galaxy forever. And for the first time in centuries, the Council realized something terrifying. The humans weren't just exploring. They were leading.